welcome everybody to How to Carrier with Warhound and Hacky. Um, First thing is, aircraft carriers. You love them, you hate them. They annoy the crap out of you, and you get annoyed the crap out of by playing them sometimes. I'm here to change that for you guys. First point of playing an aircraft carrier is, you're not here to do damage. You are here to herd cats and be a guardian angel. This is your primary function. Now, putting up big, impressive numbers, everybody wants to do that in every class of ship they have. This is not your job. Your job is to help the team to the best of your ability, even sacrificing if you have to. If this means that you have to sacrifice an entire squadron to keep one DD lit up while it's chewing through your planes, this is what you've got to do. To be a good aircraft carrier player, you are more about the team overall than your own well-being. Any questions?
I have one for Pierre. As
Okay.
he can talk, he needs help setting up skills and upgrades for.
I just didn't want to interrupt.
Okay. Skills and upgrades I will be going over at the end of this. So stick around, Pure. I don't know how much time you have. If you need to leave, I will get with you personally.
So don't worry and don't set it up right now.
Don't worry about setting it up right now.
Okay.
I want to be able to teach you guys, even if you have a brand new aircraft carrier, play it without anything on it. And then once you get the list of upgrades, then you're going to thank me for it. So, besides being the person who is there to sacrifice for the team, you are here to help out everyone. If you are seeing a player on the far side of the map that is absolutely getting mobbed by 2 or 3 other ships, don't ignore him. Fly your little happy self all the way up there and strike. That player may actually come in handy for you later. If you are losing track of DDs left and right, maybe make it your mission to go out and track them down. It's not only going to sit there and help you out in the long run, giving you the ability to move freely, but it's going to help your team out. As I said previous, you are not here to put up big numbers. You are a support player, pure and simple. Do we have any questions on what being a pure support player means? No? Good. Now,
No, but I hate it.
yeah, you can hate aircraft carriers. We are annoying. That is the fact that you will be sitting mostly in the back of the map, striking people all the way on the other side. This is just a thing of aircraft carriers. There's a reason why the battleship is obsolete. Hacky, at any point in time, we can begin the show. Now remember, when you get in, please turn off your AA by pressing the P button on your keyboard.
That is P as in Pablo.
P as in Pablo or Papa, yes.
But I want to pepper your planes with lead.
So, as we begin, you will start on your aircraft carrier. You have a selection of 3 types of aircraft: rockets, torpedoes, and bombers. When you begin a match, the first aircraft type that you're usually going to want to deploy is your rockets. They are, generally speaking, the fastest of your aircraft types. They are also the quickest to respawn. What? Sorry about that. My dog is whining because she wants on the lap. Anyways, you will begin the map by pressing 1 twice to launch an aircraft. You will go through a brief 2-second animation in which you have control of your aircraft, but not the full squadron. At this point, you may use the ASW key to A, speed up, S, slow down, and A and D to turn left and right, respectively. Are there any questions so far? Continuing on, if you see to the bottom of my screen, you currently have 2 consumables for this type of aircraft. You will have a speed boost, which will activate for about 20 seconds, and give you an unlimited ability to speed boost or slow down. And you will have right next to that on the T key. Sorry, I should have said the boost key is R, and the T key is a deployable fighter consumable. These fighters, when not set up to be anything more than just what they are, which I will cover in skills later, are useful for both destroying oncoming enemy aircraft if they were deployed fast enough and in the predictable path of your opponent, or for scouting. Such as an example, I can see these battleships over here. However, if I turn away, I will soon lose sight of them. However, if I want to keep these spotted for the rest of my team, I can drop a fighter and they will continue to spot for me as long as they are active, which is about a minute. Is there any questions?
Yes, one question. Phantom, please do not cap.
Wasn't planning on it.
Thank you.
Are there any questions related to the fighters? Go ahead and speak up, guys. There is no dumb question here.
How long does it take from the time you call them to the time that they're effective?
So that is a good question. From the time that they are called to the time that they are effective is about 3 to 5 seconds. And yes, I will say 3 to 5 seconds because it is dependent upon the nation. The German aircraft carrier, I find, responds about the fastest because they are the fastest overall. The fighters that you deploy are the rocket attack aircraft, and they are somewhat faster than most of the other aircraft that are available to any other nation. Is there any other questions?
So if I understand this right, is it patrol fighters? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Now, are those like normal assist fighters, or can you drop them anywhere on the map?
Those are fighters that you can drop in anywhere on the map. So if I want to drop them, let's say right here at the edge of where I'm at, Alpha, I simply press the T key, and where I was when I pressed that T key is exactly where my fighters are going to be called down to. You can deploy them anywhere on the map. These are unlike the fighters that are on your aircraft carrier, which are your patrol fighters. Does that answer your question?
I assume so.
No, if you need something clarified, please allow me to clarify.
Give him the
Oh, I
proper
see.
term for patrol fighter versus the other
That's
fighter.
what the
He
icon
said
is.
patrol.
with The green
I-
circle.
The green circle is the perimeter of what they will patrol.
Okay. Well, there's an icon in the map where you see a fighter with like a target reticle on the nose of it, an angle there. And I always wondered what that was. I seen that I don't know how many times in a match, but I had no idea what it was.
Yes. Please turn off Last Fantastic
Well, then
AA off, please.
tell Grass to quit attacking me.
Grass, please. Nobody attack anybody.
Okay.
So
User disconnected
to
from
cover
your
the
channel.
to cover the patrol fighters again, if you'll pay attention to your mini maps right now, I'm going to deploy my last fighter for this group. You'll see a circle that'll pop up either green or red, depending on what side you're on. And then you will see a little... Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to drop those on you, buddy. You'll see that they have a little circle with crosshairs in them. This is
User
the symbol
entered your
for
channel.
patrol fighters. These are what I usually call dumb fighters. You can't control them. You can't do anything, but they will attack just as they attacked our ranger buddy here and watched myself if they are within range. If they have no aircraft to shoot at, they will act as a spotting aircraft for you and your team. A tactic to use your aircraft, your fighter aircraft, is to use them as a spotting device, either flying over a cap or flying somewhere where the aircraft can see as you go somewhere else. For example, who just dropped those fighters?
Grass.
It
Yes.
might have been me. I was
As-
wanting to see some, but I think mine are gone already.
As Gash just dropped these fighters, he has now flown over to the Bravo cap. These fighters are going to stay active and keep that battleship spotted for as long as they can see it. Now, this does mean as they're rounding their patrol cap, they are going to make that battleship blink in and out of cover. Does that make sense to you guys? Or do I need to explain that a little bit more?
Go ahead and explain.
If I understand what you're saying correctly, draw a line from the patrolling fighter to the battleship. And if that line is obstructed by terrain, then you won't be able to spot it.
Exactly. Until the fighter passes over the terrain. These fighters will obey the same laws and physics as a normal piloted aircraft unit. So if they have to go over a piece of terrain like this mountain, then they will take extra time to be able to see that. But once they go down and start following the terrain again in their flight path, they will have line of sight to that battleship, destroyer, cruiser, whatever. Are there any other questions?
Does the number of aircraft that a fighter group will take out vary based on which carrier you're using?
Each carrier does have its own size of deployable fighters. Generally speaking, it is 6 for most of the baseline aircraft. For premiums, they can go anywhere from 8 to 10. I believe the FDR launches about 10 fighters total for its patrol aircraft with a massive circle. The radius for every aircraft in a fighter patrol unit does also differ, with some being as small as 3.5 kilometers to, I believe, the FDR and the Enterprise being as massive as about 8, which means they have an 8-kilometer patrol sector to cover. That was a very good question. Thank you for that. Is there any other questions concerning patrol fighters?
How many squadrons typically, or how many consumables? I'm not sure what it is.
For consumables, you typically have 3 consumables per wing. So you'll have 9 total. 3 for your fighters, 3 for your torpedoes, 3 for your bombers.
And is the fighters considered a consumable?
The fighter is considered a consumable. However, I do believe it is not currently augmented by superintendent.
So how many does a Tier 8 carrier typically have?
When you start getting from 6 to 10, they will always have 3.
Well, 9 total, 3 per type of aircraft.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, it'll have 9 total, 3 per type of aircraft that you have. Although there are a few notable exceptions. I believe the FDR's torpedo bombers do not have them. And I do believe that, what's the German one called? The Lowenhart does not have one on its dive bombers. So that's a good question. How many planes can be killed by enemy fighters? Generally speaking, the amount of aircraft that are in a fighter patrol will take down 1 per aircraft in that fighter patrol. Now, that means if there is, say, 6 fighters in a patrol fighter consumable, it will take down 6 aircraft. So each one of them is doing enough damage to generally take out 1 aircraft apiece. In certain cases, such as the Japanese or the German, since their health is so weak, it actually starts bleeding over into other aircraft. Any questions? Please do speak up, guys. This is all for you. So I would like to get all your questions out of the way.
So what you're saying is they deal a set amount of damage.
They do a set amount of damage. So if the damage for, like, here, we'll do a good example. Can I have the other Kaga launch a flight of fighters for me, and I will fly directly into it. Or actually, Lexington, Cypher, Do you have fighters currently available?
I do.
Could you please launch one down, and I will fly directly into it. And if everybody will watch my screen, we will show off what happens or how many fighters go down after I'm attacked. As you see in the top corner, a red fighter indicator means it is locked on to me. So, there were 4 fighters in that group, and they managed to take down all but 3, and I have a flight of 6. So that means the damage value for these, we're roughly doing half the damage for my fighters.
Verified. I got 5 ribbon kills for the fighters.
Yep. So, that's generally the rule of thumb for fighters and how they operate when interacting with your own fighters. Are there any other questions?
Nope.
All right. So we have covered how to launch a fighter. Now we're going to cover on how to recall a fighter. If, let's say, you ran into a group of fighters and you feel like you no longer have the ability to deliver a strike, or simply just wish to recall them to switch to a different type, you will press the F key. F as in Foxtrot, and you'll be immediately taken back to your carrier. Now, as you can see that there is a symbol on my minimap of a white symbol for attack aircraft. These aircraft are going to travel back to your carrier. Flight times will be completely dependent upon how far away you recalled those fighters and how far away your carrier is, whether or not it's going towards them or away from them. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah.
Now, as of note, you should know when you recall a fighter until a kilometer or 2 above their present altitude of cruising, they will still take damage. So if you have flown into a flat cloud, expect to lose probably about 1 to 2 more fighters on their way out as they're exiting to get above the clouds. The next thing I would like to cover, if we're all up to speed, is how to aim torpedoes. I feel that this is something that a lot of people struggle with, and I would be correct in that. General
Yeah.
consensus?
Yes.
So, you have selected your torpedo bombers. You have these beauties out, and you want to do a lot of damage. You'll notice that you have 3 consumables at tier 8 versus just 2. With the first 2 at tier 6 being just your speed boost and a consumable fighter, you will then gain a heal. So, some tier 6s do have a heal. I believe that they are most of the premiums. Your heal is only active for about 3 seconds and cannot be augmented unless augmented by the repair flag. That will only augment the amount of health that they are going to recover per second. Any questions on your consumables so far? Nope. All right. Everybody's speaking their piece. All right, Massachusetts, you're going to get picked on today. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's kind of expected.
All right. So the first thing I would like everybody to notice on my screen is I am going to engage, after I get over this guy, our Massachusetts. I would like you to stay still.
Engine boost activated.
I have 4 different sections. I'll do it again because that was a really close drop. You'll notice that I have 4 sections that are closing in and tightening up. Each lane represents a torpedo that is going to go on. Where the green zone ends and this blank spot begins, there is what is called the torpedo arming distance. That is going to determine whether your torpedoes have enough time to activate. It is very, very important that you pay attention to that area. If you do not have enough space for your torpedoes to activate, or leave enough room for the ship to maneuver into them, your torpedoes will not go off. Now, as we line up on a run on a stationary target, You'll notice I start really far out and leave myself open. As a stationary target, I'm going to try to line up everything. And you'll notice that even as I got close to the island, my bombers wanted to conform to the island. Massachusetts, after you take those 4, would you please start moving forward? Go about half speed there. Once you get up and moving. And please let me know when you're at half speed.
Affirmative.
Take this opportunity. I'm going to ask, are there any questions that you guys have so far?
For me, the major issue is judging how far to lead.
All right. So judging how to lead. Generally speaking, you'll want to think about how fast most battleships are. This is when it's going to come down to your own private research and knowledge of the game. So we know that the Massachusetts is a fast battleship. The Massachusetts is currently going about half speed. I have asked him to go. So we're going to lead him about 1/4 of an inch and launch these about 1/4 of an inch before he gets to the bottom of that. And as we watch, he's taken 3. Now, granted, you're not always going to hit every single torpedo.
From your channel.
But 2 torpedo hits, half of your torpedoes should always hit for what I consider a run to be successful. Any questions? Come on, guys, ask questions. This is why I'm here. Okay. All right, Massachusetts, would you please go full speed and go into evasive maneuvers, keeping your AA off? Let me know when you're up to full throttle there.
I have a question.
Ask a question.
When you are flying your squadron, say if you're doing either a bomb run or what you're doing right now, a torpedo run, how long will your torpedo planes stay out if you do not launch your torpedoes?
Your any fighter that you launch will stay out indefinitely as long as you do not recall or get destroyed. In fact, there have been certain matches where I have been actually able to refill my entire hangar because I have stayed out. And by what I mean by refill is if you look at the bottom of my screen as I press Alt, you'll see some numbers that's ticking down. That is called your timer. I currently have 1:33 for the next plane to be brought back up. As you are out, the minute you launch, you are starting a timer that ticks down to bring back a single aircraft. You can, in fact, stay out long enough to refill your hangar completely full and launch another full wave without worrying. All right, so we're going to have the Massachusetts here, Mr. Dawn of War, active maneuver. I can see he's clearly turning in to avoid my run. What I'm going to want to do is try to lead him in. I know I'm not going to get all of these to hit, but I'm going to try to corral him for another hit. And he did a good job of avoiding. When you want to go in and attack a battleship that is actively avoiding you, the thing to remember is you're not going to hit with all your torpedoes. At this point, it is trying to get him to run in or oversteer or overcorrect into at least 2 of them. With this, you want to make sure that you have more time to lead those torpedoes. Just as right now, I've made sure I've launched with about 1 inch, and I know I'm going to hit with at least 1 of them. Some damage is always better than none. Is there any question? Any questions at all? I will show this again. I'm going to slow down my aircraft. I'm going to try to line him up as best as I can, even if I have to use my mouse to correct and launch, giving enough time that I know those torpedoes are going to activate, but not enough time where he can avoid them completely. Getting at least one hit per drop. One hit per drop on an active avoiding ship should be your automatic goal. Any questions?
How many drops? I'm sorry. How many drops can you get on a torpedo plane?
So on a torpedo plane, it will vary by nation to nation. So certain ones only have 2. The Kaga has 4. Germans have 3. Americans usually have 2 or 3, depending on their upgrade. Again, it's going to come down to what aircraft carrier you are playing. As far as flights, again, it's going to come down to exactly what aircraft carrier you are playing. Certain aircraft carriers have multiple flights where you're taking out 4 to 5, or you're taking out a minimum of 3 flights per wing. Are there any other questions? No? All right, we are going to move on to the third type of aircraft. These are your dive bombers. Now, there are 3 types of current dive bombers available to us in the game. These are the standard HE bombs of the American and the Kaga, the AP bombs of the Japanese and the Enterprise, and the Germans, which are high-altitude bombers. And then we have the really crazy one, which is a carpet bomber. These are currently available to the British and to the FDR only. Are there any questions about these 3 types?
Yeah, there's also skip bombers.
There are skip bombers. I have not been able to encounter them as much as possible. Thank you for bringing that up. I did forget about those. Skip bombers do replace your torpedo bombers, and in my opinion, kind of act similarly. Although they are a very hard mechanic to understand, and I have yet to put my hands on them, I will actually leave that for somebody who owns one of those. So we have covered 4 types, thank you for the correction, of bombers that are available currently. HE bombers are probably some of the easiest bombers to understand, as they set fires when they hit a ship's superstructure if they do not shatter. As you'll notice, your planes will go up when you begin an attack, and a circle will form underneath your bombers with the reticle. What you are looking at is your bomb radius indicator. This indicator is where your bombs are approximately going to fall. This is kind of the similar, if you think about it, as your current reticle in any surface ship. You're aiming in this location, but your shells or bombs can hit anywhere inside of that. The tighter this pattern is, the closer they will fall. There is also a thing for aircraft carriers called height and drop. Height and drop can affect where bombs fall. Dawn of War, could you go to a dead stop, please? And quit your active maneuvering. Grass, please stop damaging other players right now.
Battle ends in 5 minutes.
Are there any questions about what I'm telling you right now so far?
I've got one. I've heard rumors that the grouping of bombs is it random, or is it grouped to the outside of the ring of the reticle?
So
I get a lot of straddles.
So it is completely RNG, but for certain ship types, such as destroyers, they have tried to make it where the bombs are fitted more to the outside of your ship, of the ship that you are attacking, because it was felt that it was an unfair advantage for carriers attacking DDs, that they are able to pelt them to death, which I don't see what's wrong with that. So, we are going to attack Mr. Dawn of War here. or Destroyer of Worlds. I'm going to come in at a slight angle to him. When my indicator is just about over halfway, I'm going to click. You can see that my indicator is getting smaller. Notice how my bombs fell on that one. Completely random. But I got a fire. Fire damage with your HE bombs is paramount to the amount of damage you're going to do. You want to set up your aircraft carriers, if they use HE, for the maximum amount of fire chance. Let's go again. As I screw it up completely. 1 second here. When aiming on any ship that you're attacking with an aircraft carrier's HE bombs, you want to try to hit as much of the ship as possible to give yourself the maximum chance to set fires, such as what's going to follow next.
A little more than 2.5 minutes left in this room, just so you know.
All right. See how I gave him a full weapon with 4 bombs and got 1 fire? The maximum thing that you want to do with these bombers is set as many fires as possible. I cannot stress that enough. HE bombs are all about your fire damage and getting them to burn. Now, as far as leading your target, Destroyer, would you please go forward? Just maximum throttle, balls out. You're going to have to take into account where the ship is turning to. In this case, when we have a battleship going forward and we are attacking from the rear, we are not going to want to click where they are using your reticle. You're going to want to click where they're going. So in this case, Destroyer is moving forward. I'm going to click at the bow of his ship, which is going to put me right in the middle of his ship when I drop my bombs. And they are going to hit the rear of his ship when they are released, as I have my reticle over the second turret on the bow of his ship. In reverse, when you're attacking a ship head-on, would you please turn to the left or right? Give me some run-up room here, Destroyer. If a ship is coming on you, and I mean directly head-on, you are actually going to want to underlead your target, like so. Destroyer is coming head-on, so what I am going to do is I'm going to look at the very top of my reticle, and go bow, and then lead him. And I screwed that one up just a little bit. But does that make sense to you guys of how to aim using both the top and the center of your reticle? Now, if you happen to find a ship that is over an island, sometimes you're going to have to use the very bottom of the reticle. If you want to get the maximum amount of lead, you may use the bottom of the reticle in the same fashion as the top, so that you have the ability to launch your bombs on the center of it. The last thing we're going to look at, we have, what, a minute left?
Yeah, so you got 5 seconds. So it's gonna
5 seconds.
It's gonna come out, and then we'll just slow back in.
All right. So everybody hop back in your ships, and I'll go over rockets one more time.
Before everyone rocks in and stuff, you guys, remember, this is not about you. So if you are not in a carrier, you are auxiliary, which means you are helping. So you probably are target practice. This is for the people who want to learn how to play carriers. If you're just going to F around, then I would much rather you not be in this game at all. And just listen.
Thank you, Hacky. Now, are there any questions of what I've covered so far?
I got a question.
Go ahead and lay it on me.
If you don't drop your bombs, does it count as an attack?
Say again? I'm sorry.
If you don't drop your bombs, does it count as an attack? If you just
It does
let
not.
it come out?
It does not count as an attack. In fact, you can let the timer on those run out, and your squadron will return to the formation.
But you still have reload time, like you would if you dropped the bombs, by the way.
Yep. Every time you click your attack button, no matter what it is, rockets, torpedoes, dive bombers, it is always going to act like you shot. So think of it as your shot counter as a surface ship.
All right.
Are there any other questions before we get back in? And I think I've frozen up. All right, I'm good now. We can launch. I'm going to break out an AP bomber just to show you a little bit of what the AP bombers are before we go into rockets. AP bombers are a lot trickier to use than your HE bombs. Daisy, stop.
Do all.
Sorry, my dog is getting a little antsy. There's food and she wants some. Dive bombers, you are solely reliant upon the amount of penetration damage you can do, and citadels. With citadel damage, you have to think about exactly where the citadel is from the top view rather than the side. So now you have to take into consideration not only the amount of penetration damage you have to do to the citadel itself, but to the deck armor and the superstructure of the ship. Everybody got any questions on that one? Are we clear?
Yeah.
Okay. So here is where drop height is going to really take into account what you're going to do for citadels. So as we can see, I'm going to attack, and I'm going to get my reticule right now. That attack is what's called a high angle of attack, where your bombs have the absolute highest drop value, and therefore have the highest ability to penetrate certain types of ships. The next drop I'm going to do, and unfortunately, Destroyer, you popped up first, so your target is going to be what's called a mid drop. I'm going to line up, and now I'm going to look, wait, see a second turret, and drop. And you'll notice that took a long while for my torpedo or for my bombs to be able to actually make contact. In that case, where I'm aiming for him, I'm going to want to put my crosshairs as far as an actual attack run, instead of a mid-length attack, probably right before his ship as he's moving out. A low angle drop, which is something where I'm going to come up like this, and then I'm going to come almost all the way down to the deck, where my fighters are almost parallel or even parallel, and then drop, is going to give you the lowest penetration value possible. But it is going to make sure that that reticule is either as close to or as big or as tight as it can possibly be. I would not recommend attacking any destroyers or light cruisers with AP bombs unless there's nothing else for you to shoot at.
It just doesn't do a lot of damage.
You will get an awful lot of overpin, and overpin is only 10% of your overall bomb value. I believe the overall bomb value on a armor piercing is 62,000 per bomb. If I'm dropping 3 of them, and let's just say for the simple sake of math, all 3 of them hit, how much is that in total?
186,000.
186,000. Now you only get to do 10% of those on overpins. So 10% of that total will be done as a result of your overpin. AP bombs are most effective against heavy cruisers, battleships, and other carriers. There are caveats, whereas in certain Japanese carriers, and like the Hakymu, will get overpins. The deck is simply too thin, and it will go right through.
So, overpen is 10%. Regular penetration is 30%. And
Regular-
Citadel is 100.
No, Citadel, if I believe somebody correct me on this, the math of Citadel is 150%. Battleship players, help me out here.
Can't help you there. Sorry, I just
I honestly
know they
don't
hit
know.
hard.
Hold on.
All I know is it does a lot of damage.
Yeah, I know they've changed the math on how they do that.
It's either 120 or 150.
Yeah, it's like 120 or 150 percent the amount of damage that has been done to it. Citadels for AP bombers are often really hard to get, but if like any other type of ship, you train yourself on how and where to hit all types of different ships, you're gonna see a return and a reward on investment for that. It's not something that I can say, oh, aim for the second turret, aim for the first turret. The battlefield in which you are partaking is constantly changing and evolving. Certain things are not going to be right. I can show you every single thing under ideal circumstances, but ideal circumstances are just that, ideal. Especially with the amount of RNG that they've put into how bombs fall. Anybody claiming they can teach you how to get citadels all day, all night is probably lying to you. So, are we clear on how AP bombers work and what the mechanics are behind them?
Warhound.
Deactivated.
I did not.
How do you do the high drops again where you get the highest amount out of the drop?
So, to cover the high drop again, is when you are approaching a ship, and this is where you're going to have to take into account for your lead up, is you are going to want to try to guess where your ship is going to go to. You're going to click attack. You're going to wait until you can see underneath your plane when they start to drop back down. So you'll see on my screen, let me get my bombers back up here. When I've clicked my attack button, you're going to see that crosshair turn yellow. As soon as it turns green and the planes start to physically dip back down, that is the high drop. That is the absolute highest point at which you can drop your bombs with some degree of accuracy. Does that make sense to you now?
Like mine, I'm trying to do it, and when I click on it, they don't climb, they drop down. They don't climb for some reason.
German.
You have to wait a little bit for them to reach the top of the arc.
Which one are you in, please?
Lexington.
I'm in the Graf Zeppelin.
Okay. You are in the Graf Zeppelin. That is a completely different beast. The Graf Zeppelin has AP bombers, but they are side AP bombers.
Okay.
So with the Graf Zeppelin, they are already flying at their altitude, but they are coming in from the side. Instead of attacking from the side with the Graf Zeppelin, or from the front, you want to attack from the side. Those bombs are being let go at a parallel angle to the ship, unlike the standard line ships for the Germans, where they're going to dive down, or unlike the Japanese or Americans, where they're going to climb up first and then release their bombs.
Got it.
The British and the FDR are the exception to this rule, where they don't change their altitude except for very slightly. They are carpet bombers. So instead of having to worry about your plane going up or down or getting closer to the deck, they're simply going to open bomb bay doors, and wherever your cursor is, and once you've double-clicked to begin your attack, they're just going to carpet bomb their way all the way to the target. It may sound great, but those bombs fall harder than your stalker ex-girlfriend. These are the jokes, people. You can feel free to laugh.
Jaw.
All right, the last type of plane I'm going to cover is the rocket attack aircraft. Every destroyer player, I've just brought out the bane of your existence. I've just brought out the thing that you hate the most. Rockets are very intuitive. It's as simple as you click, You wait for the cursor to go down to its smallest size. You click again when that line is intersecting your target, and you hit. Now, on certain types of rockets, such as the American Tiny Tims, there is actually a half-second delay. And most rockets you'll see, Massachusetts, I'm going to use you for a demo again. You can see where my line is going to come up, and I'm going to click right now. There was still that half second before my rockets even launched. In that half second, there is a lot of ability for your target to maneuver in or out. If you want to hit with just your standard rockets, intersect the line on your crosshair with the very middle of the enemy ship. This can also be useful when you go over an island. I will demonstrate. Certain times you're going to notice when you're flying over an island, your airplanes are going to want to go up. As we can see right now, mine want to launch pretty much straight down after I launch them. But watch what happens as I fly over an island if you're paying attention on Discord. I'm going to begin my attack here. I just yeeted those way farther than I could have before. All of your cursors are affected by terrain. I'll demonstrate with a torpedo. A torpedo that is brought out on flat ground is going to want to launch like so. It's just going to want to go straight off the bombers into the water, straight down. However, watch now as I try to launch these torpedoes from over a mountaintop into the water. Waiting for the bottom and launching. See how much longer they take to actually get into the water and then start going? It takes about a second or two. You can use these to surprise foes to think that you've flown over them, or you can use it to maybe get a little bit more time delay waiting for that ship to come into you. That seems like it's a little advanced, and it is, but it is something for you to be aware of for your crosshairs. You are always affected by terrain way more than any other ship type. Same thing with bombers. If you'll notice, your bombers are going to want to always climb, wait for their reticule, and then launch. They're going to drop straight down. But if you go to an island, that reticle is actually going to kind of follow the terrain and going to hit wherever it is on this terrain piece. Now, you can kind of use this to your advantage to shield your bombers and give them a little bit more height for launching a high strike. Any questions?
I didn't know this.
That's why I'm here. Now, are there any questions as far as aircraft carrier propers have been concerned? Any questions at all?
Doing good so far.
Earlier
All right.
today, I parked my Lexington right up against a cliff face. So my aircraft were taking off straight up like they were rocket assisted.
Yep. That actually does affect sometimes how quickly and how fast your planes will actually get into the battle space. If, let's say, you have your carrier parked ass into a cliff face, depending on whether or not it's the map border or an actual cliff, it can actually speed up or slow down how long they take to get to you. In the case of being parked to a border, it actually bounces them right onto your ship, which speeds them up. As far as a cliff face goes, it's hit or miss. I haven't been able to determine if it's an always constant going to add a second or take away a second, because the terrain is so varied and I haven't been able to play with every single type of aircraft carrier that's available.
In my experience, because your range extends when you go over terrain with rockets, it's very hard to ambush a ship hiding behind an island that has any kind of altitude to it. The same cannot be said for torpedoes or bombers. You can bounce a ship right behind an island very easily with torpedoes and bombers, so long as you've got enough room for them to arm.
That is true. The other thing, too, is you can use islands to shield yourself from AA. Who is closest to an island here? DeGrasse. Who is that? Lee, would you turn on your AA kindly? And come over to the island at Foxtrot 3. Now you'll notice anybody who's flying around any aircraft, you're taking a crap ton of damage right now. What's the range on your AA? It should be what, 6? They're 5.8. For aircraft carriers who are wanting to actually get into and main this, I would not deal in the points system, or like 0.58. Always assume it's 6. Always assume something is a whole value. That way you don't get lulled into, oh yeah, it's 0.5, 0.6, whatever. All right. So I'm going to fly my fighters now directly over. Now I'm taking some fire. I decide, oh, well, I don't want to deal with that right now. So I'm going to speed up. And I'm going to turn my aircraft away from him. Now that I've gotten over on this side of the island, I'm no longer taking any more damage, even though I'm within 6 of him. Same thing, I can use this to line up an approach. So now, I'm coming over the top of an island, and if I had enough space here, I could barely get one of these to clear, I think. Oh, no, I did not get it to clear. But you can use this as a tactic to ambush any enemy ship that you wish, provided you have enough space for torpedo bombers, or enough space for your cursor for your bombers or your rockets to dip down and start hitting the ship. Now, how many people here knew that?
No, I didn't quite know that.
I didn't.
All right. So this is where I'm going to end my lesson, because I want you guys to have the very basic understanding. Is there any questions that you guys have as far as turning in, turning out ships, things that you guys should be doing, shouldn't be doing, etc.?
Autopilot.
Okay. Autopilot. How many people are here familiar with autopilot?
Sailors.
I would take it as a bulk majority of you are not used to autopilot. So autopilot is ran by pressing the M as hello. You can open your mini map with the M button and click to set up one point. By holding shift and clicking down 4 more times, you can set up a route for your aircraft carrier to follow. Each point will reset. So say you need to, I don't know, loop around to the other side of the islands here, you can actually set yourself up a course to take you out of the fight and away from as many enemy ships as possible, checking back in occasionally when you hear point reached or location reached from your captain, or by paying attention to your mini-map. If all of you guys try this right now, because this is not exclusive to the aircraft carrier, you'll be able to open your mini-map.
Can I ask what this room is for?
This is for training right now.
Can I join? Or am I too late?
Well, I'm about ready to end my training for the day, and we're going to go into a mock match.
Okay.
So what I would like everybody to do right now is to open your mini-map And we are going to do something. Just using your minimap, I would like you to set a course for Point Charlie, and everybody go in there. Using your as many of the waypoints as you possibly can to reach it. So you'll notice that your ship now is completely moving on its own and doing what it needs to reach that point that you have. This is useful for aircraft carriers, but it is also somewhat useful for battleships if you're taking long-range back shots, which many of you shouldn't be doing except for like Yamatos and Shikishimas and the like. But it is another tool that you can get used to in any ship to get used to using outside of an aircraft carrier. This is your lifeblood. As an aircraft carrier, you want to remain mobile because as the mass is shooting at me right now, and yes, I can see from the minimap that you're shooting at me, you're moving. You're a harder target than a stationary one to hit. Plus, you're not always going to be in the same spot. As far as you moving around, the best thing I can suggest is to move in a circle when you begin your map, when you begin your match. So put down a random assortment of patterns in the back line until you figured out where all the enemy ships are going, and then either move towards the strongest side while keeping out of the battle, or keeping yourself available to
User joined your channel.
to retreat or advance as needed, or support the weak side and keep back and make sure that you have a route out. Now, as note, your autopilot is a drunkard. It doesn't understand how to start turning well before you should not hit that island. You'll also have to understand your things like turning radius for your ship when you do this. Are there any questions?
Warhound, your AA is on.
Oh, my AA is on. Apologies. Are there any questions? Any things that you would like for the aircraft carrier main to tell you as far as what an aircraft carrier should do at the beginning of the match, etc.?
Can someone learn me how to use an air carrier?
You missed most of the training.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You'll need to watch the
I
video.
apologize.
But you can watch the video.
Thank you. I will do that.
As far as everybody here is concerned, apparently I'm doing a good job of...
Can I join the match you're gonna do?
I believe you can.
It's on the NA server. Remember
And
that?
I'm gonna be there in 2 minutes, okay?
Yep. That's
Thank
fine.
you. I'm just taking me five drag of my cigarettes.
That's fine. So, are there any other questions you guys have?
Yes.
Okay, ask.
What is the primary target for CVs? Because I've seen CVs go after DDs and making their lives a living hell. I've seen CV players just be the scouts. I've seen so many different myriads of how to play CV. I don't know what's right anymore.
So there is no wrong way to play a CV except for when you're being the unsupportive, team-ignoring douche. You
So
can't...
what would be the situation for randoms, and what would be a situation for clan battles? Since clan battles are coming up.
Let's go for clan battles. Clan battles, you are there to flush people out. You're there to act as an advanced scout, and you're there to stop caps if you can. You are there at the whim and will of everybody else. You're there to, like as I said, support everyone and do what your caller wants. Primarily, as far as targets goes, you're going to want to seek out your DDs first and those annoying radar cruisers if you can. Now, generally, those annoying radar cruisers are AA ships, so unless you have strong skills in CV, don't attack them. If you are not a me, a Raz, a Gladiator, or a Turret, don't go in trying to piss off the AA cruisers like we do.
They're mean.
Yeah, that's mean, and they will chew you up unless you know what you're doing and how to attack them. And that is an advanced topic for another day that I will cover.
Just say that's a good call, not just in clan battles, but in random battles as well. Just try and avoid them.
Even in random battles, Your goal is to do things that people are losing track of. So whether that's the AA boats that are grouped together and your battleships need a line of sight on them, well, your job now is to act as an interactive scout. Congratulations. You're going to be circling out just outside of their AA range while your battleships pummel them, if you have a good team. Or it may be to go after that annoying DD that nobody's seen in like 3 minutes. But you saw torpedoes and you were in the air being launched from halfway across the map. You also may have to go after lone targets of opportunity, like a battleship, a cruiser, a destroyer, even another aircraft carrier, if that's all you've got access to hit. So while there is no wrong way to play an aircraft carrier, there is a wrong way to aircraft carrier as far as being uncooperative for teams. And that was a great citadel by the Wesser. You will never...
No, the Roger ran into it.
Yeah, I can see. I may have tried to specify everybody to go to different ones, but okay. Are there any other questions that you guys have?
The subject of what your target priority is really not something that's agreed on. People are bickering about it on the forums right now.
And those people are all wrong. Because the true answer for target priority is what's lacking. So if you're in a game where there's 4 DDs, but like 2 cruisers and a shit ton of battleships, perhaps you should go after those DDs because they're going to be more of a pain in the ass to all of your primary damage dealers than those cruisers. Conversely, if there's like no DDs, but a crap ton of cruisers and battleships, congratulations, you've been promoted to DD. Except you can't cap anything, and you have to provide everybody all of the visibility to hit anything. If it's a balanced match, then start doing what you think is right. If you see everybody murder ball to A, and like 3 ships go to the C cap, and they're all by themselves, perhaps you need to support them way more than you need to do the A cap, because they have enough guns and firepower to level anything over there. But your C cap is lacking. They need the spotting. They need the intel. They need you to chase away a DD or chase away a cruiser or a battleship. And yes, aircraft carriers, I have chased away 2 ships facing one of my own. And because I was over there constantly hitting them with good torpedo runs and good dive bombing runs, they just decided to nope the fuck out and go back to the rest of their buddy.
Torpedo's a great way to steer enemy battleships because you know which way they'll dodge. It's
Yes.
a great way to make them go broadside to your allies.
Yes. Now, as far as covering your torpedoes for the last little bit of the remainder of this match, your torpedoes and your planes in general are great for corralling the enemy into positions you want them. If you're in clan battles, most people will want to turn to avoid you. You can say, hey, I'm turning this battleship broadside to you, Shikishima. Take your shot. Coordinate with your teammates in clan battles, because that's going to be the biggest thing that they can that you can do to help them. In randoms, you can steer people. And what I mean by steering is you can drop torpedoes, say, from behind, and you can put the reticle that I was discussing with the torpedo arming distance right behind them, in fact halfway up a boat, and launch. And if the boat is fast enough, it'll keep pace with those torpedoes and force them to move along, because nobody wants to take that torpedo hit and maybe get their engine disabled, maybe get flooding. Maybe the guy just came off a cooldown and he's like, fuck, I can't afford to take a hit and get flooded. So he's going to, and I'm going to use destroyer here as an example, I'm going to launch these real close to his backside. I'm not going to hit anything, but that torpedo that hit him may have caused him, while he was at full speed, to start turning out, giving somebody on my side a broadside open to just end him. Same with these destroyers. let's go. Let's pick on this Fantastique here. Why
You
don't
have
you?
a minute and a half left.
I'm just gonna show this off real quick. Have you go straight. Now I know the Fantastique is friggin' fast, and he's a maneuverable little sumbitch. So what I'm gonna do is come in, and I'm gonna launch my torpedoes. Now he thinks he's clear, but now he can't turn to his left side. I may have had a ship over here on the right that is now pelting him. If he wants to turn, he's going to lose speed. Go ahead and turn into those. You see how much speed he lost dramatically on that? If he had started turning well before that to go left or right, he may have eaten one of those. You will not always get a torpedo hit on a destroyer, but when you do, it feels amazing. This is what I mean by, hurting a ship. You can force them to go straight, you can force them to go left, right, center, all that.
Isn't what you're supposed to do with German CVs is torpedo them destroyer?
Now, you can torpedo the enemy destroyer. It does take a lot of skill and a lot of luck, a lot of guesswork as to what that person's going to do. But
The rockets are AP and the bombers are AP.
the rockets are, I would actually rather prefer, as far as dealing with a destroyer, hitting hitting the destroyer with those rockets, because while yes, you are getting a fuck ton of overpins, it is at least a consistent and reliable form of damage. Besides, you're also able to disable guns, torpedoes, and take out some equipment such as rudders and engine rooms. Unless you feel very comfortable with attacking with torpedoes, which is a skill that takes a while to be able to get up to. It is something that I would avoid doing unless you were willing to practice with it. Just as I said, as something you have to practice with, being able to launch your rockets over an island, your torpedoes, etc.